Hey, this is the guy, and today we're going to be talking about how the rest of the season went with Joe Burrow under center when he came back from his injury, and along with a look around the rest of the AFC North. Everybody's head coach, Ravens, Cleveland Browns, and the Pittsburgh Steelers all fired their head coach, but the Cincinnati Bengals. So we're going to have a deep talk about that and why that is. They all have found the replacements already, but why does Zach Taylor, out of all three, still have his job? Has been on my mind a lot. So we're going to talk about that here a lot in this video. I do want to apologize for this new video format. I have been sick the past couple of weeks, and on camera, I did not look very. I just looked sick, and also I did not want you guys to be hearing me sneezing or sniffling every 2 seconds. So I do feel better to where I'm not sneezing or sniffling every 5 seconds or so. So we're going to start off with how the rest of the season went with Joe Burrow under center. Burrow came back Thanksgiving night, which, mind you, was a couple weeks earlier than expected for him. He was expected to come back around week 15, and he came back week 13, I believe it was, against the Ravens on Thursday night on Thanksgiving, and picked up a big win. You know, he had two touchdowns, one to Yosavash and one to Tanner Hudson, and they picked up a big 34-13 win over the Baltimore Ravens. And at that point in time, the question was, are the Bengals going to go on this run? Are the Bengals going to go on this run? Well, throughout the season when Burrow was under center, they went 5-3, and when he came back, they were 3-3. So picked up those 3 losses when he came back from injury. But without Burrow under center, they went 1-8, and that is a combination of Joe Flacco and Jake Browning under center when he went down with that turf toe injury. Burrow came back. But the Bengals went 1-8 without Joe Burrow under center, so that is definitely an interesting thing to look at, with their only win being over the Pittsburgh Steelers that Thursday night, called the Icy Hot Bowl back in Cincinnati. But they went 5-3 with Burrow on the year, 3-3 with his return. He did have his struggles, he really did, and of course you expected that with a quarterback coming back from an injury, the highest graded injury you could possibly have in that area. He had surgery on it, and wasn't really able to be mobile that much with his foot being in a boot most of the time, but he came back a lot earlier than expected, and that shocked a lot of people. But he did have his struggles, but he looked like the Joe Burrow we all know, as we expected him to as well. Burrow came back and is now a Pro Bowl quarterback along with Joe Flacco. But Burrow came back, put up great numbers. He finished the year with 1,800 passing yards, 17 touchdowns compared to 5 interceptions, and so that is a pretty good ratio considering he only played 8 games. So he was on pace for a season similar to last year, but he did have his struggles. And one of the struggles that he struggled with was, he had quote unquote having fun. Injuries, losing, some growing frustration with small parts of the front office was the report at the time, because the Bengals just kept losing their games, and they were at that losing streak. He expected to come back and be competing for a division title instead of be competing for a top 10 draft pick. And, you all have to look at it as this is an issue at the front office. And like I said, he did grow frustrations with the front office, but Burrow, main issue was he addressed that he struggled having fun. It's hard to have fun when you're always rehabbing from injuries, when you're losing along with all of that. If you're not going to be winning, then what are you doing it for, is what he highlighted. What his main highlight was. He needs to be winning games. And so when he was winning games, he addressed that he was having fun, and that all that hard work behind the scenes, coming up, doing extra work to bring him to that point where he came back a lot earlier than teams expected him to. When he was winning games, it all paid off. But he feels like when they are losing and he's always in the rehab room, he's always getting hurt, or et cetera, it's a lot on the mental mind for him, and it's a lot on the body just in general. So he struggled with that having fun part, and as the season ended, he was saying that he was getting his fun back, really just focusing on taking it one game at a time after they were eliminated from playoff contention by the Baltimore Ravens. I think it was week 16, but no, it would have been week 15, but before anybody goes and just draws conclusions out of this, Burrow just wants to win. I'm clarifying here. Burrow wants to win games at a consistent level like he was his second and third year. They made that Super Bowl run and he became obsessed with it, and rightfully so. Once you get a taste of winning, you don't want to stop it, right? So once you get that taste of winning, you want to continue to win. So he's just obsessed with winning, and I feel like rightfully so, So he does not want out of Cincinnati. Just to clarify that, any trade rumors you see that aren't from Adam Schefter or any of those really good insiders, I would not believe them or take them to heart whatsoever. Burrow wants to win. And so if anybody draws those narratives about him wanting out, they are false as of the moment. I will say right now, if this pattern continues of losing and continuing to be frustrated, expect him to continue to get frustrated. You know what I mean? Have that frustration continue to grow and grow and grow until it becomes uncontrollable. So hopefully that never happens. But yeah, the season ended well with Burrow. Aside from the record, he put up good numbers. Of course, he came back to compete for a playoff spot and ended up getting the number 10 overall pick in the NFL draft instead. But now it's time to take a look around the rest of the AFC North. Like I mentioned, everybody's head coach but the Cincinnati Bengals have been fired or just stepped down. Harbaugh's gone, Stefanski's gone, along with Tomlin. Tomlin stepped down, Stefanski was fired, along with Harbaugh. And now they all have their replacements. The Ravens have hired Jesse Minter. The Browns have hired their new head coach, Todd Monken, former offensive coordinator for the Baltimore Ravens, and the Steelers have hired Mike McCarthy as their new head coach. But now that brings the question, why not Zach Taylor? You know what I mean? Like, Kevin Stefanski won 2 Coach of the Year awards, and it's not like it was necessarily his fault that he couldn't win games. He wasn't really given the right roster for that, and when he was given the right roster or proven to or have the right amount of talent on a roster, he has shown that he could be the guy at the head coach spot for that team when he won 2 Coach of the Year awards. So that one doesn't, to an extent, it surprises me. Harbaugh, his time was up. He was there for over 15 years and only won 1 Super Bowl, and every year has high expectations, just never really reached that expectation, haven't reached the Super Bowl since. So that is one of those things. And then Mike Tomlin, kind of a similar situation here. This year was kind of a make or break year for the Steelers. They, of course, won the division, but they didn't really succeed anything else. Aaron Rodgers is a big question mark if he's going to be their quarterback coming back next year or not. And, now because Tomlin's gone, he's probably not going to be there. So the Steelers are in an interesting position hiring Mike McCarthy. Do they draft a quarterback? Do they want to build around – do they want to go get a free agent in free agency? Do they want to possibly build around Will Howard, give him a chance, maybe even – so like anything's really up for the grabs for the Pittsburgh Steelers at that quarterback spot. Of course, Mike McCarthy was the quarterback for the Green Bay Packers when Aaron Rodgers was in Green Bay for his time in Green Bay. So that's an interesting connection, as Mike McCarthy has mentioned that he has talked to Aaron Rodgers about just about the recent hire. And then the Ravens, Jesse Minter, and the Browns, like I said, hired their new head coach, Todd Monken, who is extremely familiar with the AFC North, so he knows how that AFC North and how competitive it can get. But this is genuinely a question. Why does Zach Taylor still have a job? Like, I just mentioned everything or close to everything that the other head coaches have done. They have been tenured for 15 plus years. They have won Coach of the Year awards. They have won Super Bowls. They have had consistent winning records. Zach Taylor has done none of that. And so that genuinely does make me wonder why Zach Taylor still has a job as the Bengals front office. But I did some paying attention, and it's Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow is the reason that Joe Burrow is a big reason why Zach Taylor still has that job, along with Jamar Chase. Coming to the NFL, Joe Burrow has only had Zach Taylor at the head coaching spot. He has had different offensive coordinators with Brian Callahan and other guys, but he hasn't had really another input on the head coaching spot aside from Zach Taylor. So of course he doesn't know what another head coach could do. He has supported Zach Taylor all throughout his 6 years in the NFL and has continued to do so, even though the Bengals have struggled heavily. So has Jamar Chase, even though there is speculation that Jamar Chase does or would like a head coaching change or at least a staff change at the bare minimum for the Cincinnati Bengals. And with Zach Taylor not being fired, the rest of his coaching staff is expected to return. That includes defensive coordinator Al Golden, who didn't have such a good first year as the defensive coordinator here. We all know that the Bengals dropped a lot of games because of that defense and was a heavy reason why they didn't make the playoffs once again for 2 consecutive years now. So it is definitely an interesting thing when the Bengals bring back Zach Taylor. It doesn't surprise me too that much because, number one, Zach Taylor's under contract for another couple of years. And number 2, Joe Burrow and the face of the franchise support Zach Taylor to the fullest. But at least a change somewhere. Something has to change, and Burrow expressed that in his final press conference of the season. Something has to change. Doesn't know what that is. Maybe fire the defensive coordinator. Maybe fire the general manager, Duke Tobin, or something along the line. Because I have come to realization the Bengals probably missed their window. Especially this year, the Bengals division, the AFC North, was really weak. The Ravens, Lamar Jackson didn't play really that much this season. The Steelers were not really consistent at winning, and the Browns are the Browns. The Browns are the Browns. Did the Bengals miss their window? And not only in the division, but the entire AFC alone. You look at the Patriots, and they went 14-3, but look at that schedule. There is not really one highlighted win that really shows that they are as dominant as a team as they have shown that they are viewed as, because they're representing the AFC in the Super Bowl. So did the Bengals miss their window? That's a different question for a different day. That is definitely an important thing to look at, and it is definitely a front office kind of thing that might need to be addressed here in the offseason. So with that being said, we talked about how the season ended with Joe Burrow back under center. He came back Thanksgiving and kind of just finished the season from there, hoping to get the Bengals back into the playoffs, and kind of just failed to do so. He did perform at a good level, just the rest of the team around him, or he did have, like I said, he did struggle at times. And then a look around the AFC North. Everybody got fired, and everybody has a new head coach but the Cincinnati Bengals. This is a big offseason for the Bengals and a big make-or-break year for the Bengals this next season. If the Bengals don't succeed, like I said, Burrow's frustration is expected to grow, and Zach Taylor might even be gone after the season if they don't make the playoffs bare minimum. So that being said, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe. Hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching. This is your Cincy Guy.